All right. Running a little behind today. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Start with the minutes. We hear a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll move.
Here a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. No, I can't vote.
All right.
I'm down the minutes.
Well, I guess I'll be the tie-breaking vote there. Any no's? We have two people who weren't present for the last meeting, so there's two. All right, minutes are approved. Man, that's raise a thin margin.
Hopefully that's the toughest one of the night.
That probably won't be. I guarantee it. Budget report.
There's a report for March, as requested at the bottom. You see the rollover amount is separated from the budget year to date. Nothing really out of the ordinary so far in the month of April. I mean, in the month of March to April.
I don't see that.
Roll.
Come on.
Oh,
At the bottom.
Oh, no, the very bottom. Okay. Okay.
all right.
We're continuing to run deficits. Is that what I'm reading this says, or are we running?
Yeah, so right, if you see at the very top, budget remaining from citation and license fees is 315,000 to the good for the year. So it'll cancel that out at the bottom where it says 207 eventually. It'll all cancel out.
That's expectation.
Yeah. And then I think there's one more quarter payment before then.
Yes.
Yeah. That we'll receive from the landfill.
Very good.
And
I think at
then
the last meeting, it was, it may have been the meeting before, it was that the license fees were about 30% over expected.
right.
So I mean,
Yeah.
if you get another quarter of 30% above budget on the license fees, that'll help answer that.
And here's some costs that came through the month. So
All right. Scales we approved.
yes.
And then is that the last payment for Rathfellas there, or would it be another?
I do believe that's the last one.
I couldn't remember if it was
Yeah.
April or May, was when it would have been paid.
Yeah. I reached out and haven't got an answer back yet, but I'm pretty sure because I wanted to have that answer before tonight's meeting, but I didn't get it back in time.
And then retrack we approved as well.
Yes, the merge knowledge. Yeah.
As far as anything over 5,000, those are all approved.
Yes.
All right. Do we hear a motion to approve the budget report? For a second.
I'll second.
Questions or further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Budget report is approved. Let's go to the staff report. Got the educational calendar.
Yeah, like we did last month, just wanted to go ahead and show you all the calendar. And I think we showed you April last month just to catch, but a few things were added. But again, very busy month with actually today being Earth Day. So I don't think I need to explain everything, but if you have any questions about all of our events, we did do the Goodwill Second Chance Outlet Tour, which was very interesting, and we can always share more about that if anybody wants to talk about it. And then the next one for May, not quite as busy as April, but we do have a lot of Saturday events after Derby. So you can see that we'll be in several parks and at Lovell Rose and a few more tours and then one school, school program.
I apologize if you've already covered this, but I saw 2 Mondays in a row we at Conway.
Conway Middle, reached out to do plastics investigation, which is a program about plastics and understanding the different types of plastic and how it can be recycled. And they do, kind of understanding the different resin types. And they, actually, a teacher from there informed us that there is a part of the JCPS curriculum that's in, I think, the language arts section actually relates to plastic use, which was kind of interesting. So he was kind of informing us on that, getting us a contact, which we don't have yet, about curriculum, just to work with that and make sure we're offering some programs that meet those needs and share better with teachers. But yeah, he had a lot of students, so we went several times because it's a hands-on activity. So we did it one class at a time.
Are we offering that to the middle school calls?
And how do middle schools find out about this resource?
Periodically put it out into JCPS newsletters or on social media. I think putting it through there, if you have a student or know anyone to get like a family update or there's a teacher update, there's different ones, and one for principals. And we got one in, I think one that all the teachers get. And I mean, we got responses like a lot right away just by putting it in there. So that was at the beginning of the school year. So we'll make sure and do it again. I don't think we've done it again since then, but we got a lot of responses that way. And then we do reach back out to schools that we've been to before. Keep them on the list.
I have a question.
Yeah.
With any of the events, do you ever need any assistance or anything from the board?
We've never put that out there. We have a volunteer program that's a No Waste Ambassador program. So typically if we need help, we usually put it out to our ambassadors, but you are absolutely welcome to attend if you want to even just, see programs in action. I can keep you posted on if there's a day, even that you see, like next month, the Touch a Truck, those are pretty fun to see in person. They're outdoor with the recycling truck. But yeah, if you're interested in a program, you can email me and I will have you fun.
Thank you.
That'd be great.
And then with Holy Trinity and St. Agnes, are those published through the archdiocese or is that individual outreach?
I don't know if we've published anything through the archdiocese, but we seem to have a little bit of a network and we go to some of those schools every year. I think we started with St. Agnes because we knew a parent. And then they just kept coming back. So sometimes it's just word of mouth. But yeah, we're up for it. We have a flyer and we have an online form. So if you know any teachers or anybody or any kind of insight on ways we can get more, we'll do it.
Yeah, I would say probably the archdiocese. The best resource at scale.
Yeah.
To utilize for that.
The next thing is still me.
Yeah, any other questions about the calendar? If you guys can attend the West Rock tour or the waste management landfill tour, definitely do that.
Email about that as a reminder. I can send one to you, sure.
Okay, let's move forward to the pop-up drop-off.
Yep, so I think we did report about the Sun Valley event last month, but since then we had our second pop-up drop-off event April 4th at Shelby campus. We had 700 participants, which isn't a record, but it's still a lot. We also had a volunteer e-waste rescue at this one. We have started a process for having an MOA between anyone who wants to do that. And this particular person, his name is Bob Mitchell. He works with Catholic Charities and Spark Hope, and he collects specifically laptops and other devices that can be cleaned up, refurbished, whatever needed to get out to folks that need them here in the community. And most of them, he said, go through Catholic Charities. And he weighed the materials for me so I could have that record. And then we are continuing our partnership with Goodwill, having a truck. And everything else is the same from years prior, but some numbers are estimates, but I use the same method each time. And we of course have, well, you can see the diversion rate is a lot higher than the one before, but that's just because of how much material people bring in the different categories. So we had less coming for the large items, which are landfill, and more for shredding and e-waste. So on the next slide, you can see that participation graph. Go back, okay. Slated, so that's okay, we'll get to it.
Which just one quick question.
Yeah.
And forgive me if you've already said this.
That's okay.
Yard waste.
Yep.
Leaves, grass.
Yeah. Small branches, leaves, grass, people, often these events are out further into the county. And a lot of times you have to pay extra for that service. So, well, we know that. But we get a lot of people dropping off that material at these events. This is the only time it's free. We do ask that it still meets those guidelines that it would at the curb, especially for easy offloading. But yeah, and it's compost. That goes to Smith Creek for composting. Just like if it was at the curb, most hauler, well, our Metro as a hauler takes it to.
I'm just looking at
Wait.
the weights.
Mhm.
9,000 pounds
Yeah.
and 12,000. That's.
Yeah.
Well, the last month when you were here, you showed a couple of pictures of people that had not, like, that brought in basically
Yeah.
A trailer,
Yeah.
a trailer of debris.
Yeah, and that's why they asked that it be, that's why they asked that it meet the guidelines for yard waste, so that the people that are working it don't have to spend an hour.
Yeah, they do bring
What an-
equipment, so they're ready for that, but we do ask people to have everything separated and not, but mostly because so many people come through, we want it to happen fast. So if we're having to unload by hand, it's.
Just to get it off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Well, it's a little bit of a catch-22, right? Because you don't want to tell somebody that's non-compliant,
Right.
sorry, you can't drop it off,
Yeah,
because
they-
then it defeats the purpose.
They take it over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just illegally dump it somewhere.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Okay.
And then so when people come through those events, we have an app that helps us to track what categories they brought, and that also tells us the participant number. So I always have a graph of which materials were brought the most. And at this particular event, document shredding was by far the highest, followed by the e-waste, which because both of those things are recycled. Whereas I think with Sun Valley, large items was higher up there with the participation. But anyway, that gives us our idea of how many people are bringing each category.
I'm surprised at the medicine number.
Yeah, people love to do that too.
Well, because every police station has a medicine drop.
People don't know that.
That's true.
Yeah. It's still high. Okay.
And then our zip code map always shows the higher numbers coming from surrounding the area. But again, we get people from all over the county coming to every event.
You, on the, I guess this is fine too, large items. What about things that are like freezers, refrigerators, and whatnot?
We don't accept those there. They have to go straight to the Waste Reduction Center. But our next event is May 16th, and this one is at Shawnee Park. So any help spreading the word about that event would be great. We have some flyers that get spread out especially with our enforcement officer that's in the area. It always gets given to folks when they're out and about. But yeah.
Okay, let's move to the advisory committee report.
I apologize, I was not present last Wednesday. So Sandra was.
I was present and essentially our meeting and Karen can tell you more. But our meeting was essentially what you just looked at. We spent the bulk of our time looking at what you just said.
Yes, and, well, I did give them the update about the grant, from last month, the different criteria and things that we're gonna do for the grant this year. I had 3 volunteers from the advisory committee to be on the reviewer, as a reviewer for the grant this year. And I actually have a slide to, so I didn't forget to ask, but do you,
It's up there now.
the board want to have a representative from the board as well as a reviewer? Last year, we just had 1 board member and 1 advisory committee member and then 3 staff. But I wanted, if you wanted to have a board representative, I was hoping you all could, someone could volunteer, so I know who to be, communicating with about that.
What's your total number? 7? That you want?
Last
Three
Five.
committee, three
Last year, we
staff.
just had 5, but there were only 6 applications. We did all review all of them, but it's possible if there's a lot more applications this year that we could spread them out differently. So, so that not to overwhelm all reviewers if we had more. But as of right now, we could have 6 reviewers already.
I mean, I think it makes sense to have a board member if at all possible. I think was it Alex that was the representative last year?
Carl.
Oh, Carl, okay.
You do not have to decide now at this very moment, but I would like to, I can always. But I just, we're not even gonna announce it till July, so we have time, but if you, it's just knowing that there's going to be a board member is helpful to me, because I know I can bring it back up.
Yeah, that seems like a good idea. Yeah, it looks like we have reasonable consensus that,
Yeah, that arms us a little bit, so we're not the first exposure from the board to, isn't, right, that just as the recommendations from the advisory.
And other than the grant, we talked a lot about recycling participation and education, our education team. And things that we're interested in doing. I think our discussion was all over the place really, but it was a good discussion. But it was focused on recycling participation and in residential areas plus in businesses. So we didn't really do anything in particular. But that was because of the direction from last month that we could be looking at ideas to bring to you later. So we don't have anything new to bring up.
You have anything written in that regard? Karen, participation rates and et cetera? By just including, urban service district versus, the cities versus the unincorporated?
No, there's some of our other programs, we're kind of able to see a little bit about, like if we did a recycle right program somewhere, for example, in Prospect, plus in some areas of the urban services district, we can use that data to get a participation rate. But we don't have that for everywhere.
Is it possible? I don't want to get off topic here, but is it possible to have something like that? I mean, do the vendors provide that information in that regard? Or that's
Dollars you mean,
Yeah.
I don't think so. And I think it's tricky because even with the urban services district, everyone is offered, you can recycle as part of your taxes, just like in a lot of the homeless cities, it might be offered, but not everybody actually
Yeah.
participates.
Well, there's a difference between participation rate and set out rate. So if you're looking from the private sector, at least, when we do the annual report, we list number of residential MSW customers, number of residential recycling customers, and residential yard waste customers. So you could, divide any of the bottom 2 numbers by the total number of MSW customers and get a participation rate, but you probably wouldn't see, you couldn't really discern what the actual set out rate on a given pickup day is from that.
And we found that even in Prospect in our first area for Recycle Right, you know, the first
Yeah.
time we went out, not everybody had participated, but then the next time more people had
I
participated.
did think it was interesting that you showed a slide, I think it was last month, from the conference that you attended on set out rates based on whether or not someone requested a cart or was given a cart because a program was mandatory.
Yeah.
And the finding was that the actual set out rate didn't differ between those two types of access. If you mandate the service or if they, volunteer for the service, if they have the cart, they set it out at basically the same rate. I think what we've seen historically, and this is, it's back up, but not in that, is that you'll get a little bit higher contamination rate from people that have the service mandated to them until they have participated in the program long enough to have some education about what goes in there. But you have, people that volunteer for it, they're doing it because they want to recycle. So they do the research and see exactly what will go in there. But
What about the study we talked about, but we didn't have the money to actually execute that he brought up?
Oh, yeah, the capture rate study. We were talking about that. That's part of the solid waste management 5-year plan, is to do a capture rate study. And
Describe that, please.
that is basically having a company do measurement of trash sent out and recycling set out by sampling and then getting capture rate, meaning how much of the recyclables were actually captured and how much were in the trash. So you can kind of be able to, I was really excited to do that at some point because it helps you target your education. Because you don't really know what you're losing because no one's digging through the trash, basically. So that was put on the 5-year plan. An RFP went out. One company was selected. I think really only one bid on it, but it was selected, but then we didn't have the bandwidth to actually go through with that. And after that, I really wasn't part of the contract or anything.
when you say bandwidth, was that a funding problem or just a staffing issue? Because I know that would be labor intensive.
I think to get the price down,
Okay.
we were gonna be participatory in some way and using maybe some of our space. So I just remember asking Pete if we were gonna do it, and Pete just kept saying, we put it off because of not really being able to handle it at the time. So it was brought back up. So yes, we'll
He
wait.
said it was gonna cost a little more than $150K to do it, and initially proposed that through negotiation, they got it down to $50K, but that entailed the city doing most of the grunt work.
Yeah.
And they didn't feel like they had the people to do that, so
That sounds perfect. Anyway, it seems just to build on what Andy was saying, it seems to me that the set out rate study is, we're lacking basic data, which is my interpretation of what this discussion is. That would be the first thing we want to do as compared to emptying people's garbage or recycling containers, whatever, or garbage containers and seeing what's in them. Do the set out rate, because even in my neighborhood, which is an unincorporated area, I could drive down the street and I can't tell, maybe Andy can, and some of the other competitors can tell, but I can't tell which are recycling containers and which are not. I mean, somebody may have 2 containers out, but they may be both garbage containers. I don't know. But in general, I'd say 90+% of my neighbors have 1 container out and that's it. I mean, that is
Actually, we're finding another thing in Prospect. We tend to have an older population. And before this last couple of years, we had small bins. When they went to a not every week pickup, we all got the big, huge bins. Because we have an older population, they have smaller households. And so they're not putting them out every other week. They're putting them out once a month, maybe.
Okay.
So just the set out rate our bins are different, and it wouldn't be the same like yours, or probably wouldn't give us as much as we need.
Right, but basically, I mean, we have got seemingly almost nothing right now.
I hear you, data would be lovely.
And so it'd be wonderful, as a good start, if nothing else, some way to figure out in those areas where it's offered. Some sort of participation of, numbers, percentages, whatever we want, some sort of set up rate of recycling, because before we get to a point, and I apologize, John, getting ahead of here.
No, please go ahead.
Get into, this cost of service stuff. I mean, it really comes down to knowing if we give everybody a recycling container countywide, or at least in the unincorporated areas, as an example.
Yeah.
And nobody's gonna use them, or only 10% or whatever's gonna use them or whatever, then what a horrible waste of money.
Yeah.
It's not mandatory in the wonderful Commonwealth. So, as compared to other places. So, I mean, I've been involved in recycling since the 1980s, well, really the 1960s, considering the bottles and newspaper collections when I was a kid. But the goal all the time has been to reduce the amount of waste being landfill.
Yes.
And no disrespect, but
No, we're the largest recycler in America. No disrespect. Don't take it.
but is that still the goal? I don't, you know.
Well, I mean,
That's-
the goal that was set by the long-term study that was completed, I think 2017 years, get away from me, but 2017, 2018, is 90-90. So it's 90% participation in, and this is by 2042, so this is not expected to be overnight, but it's 90% participation in recovery programs, meaning recycling and yard waste collection on the residential side, and 90% diversion of recoverable material.
Oh, my God.
Because but that's much lower than you think. Because the waste characterization study that we did at the same time as part of that study showed that at that point, 38% of what was in the landfill or being put in the landfill was not recoverable at that time. So if you start at 62% that is recoverable and you get 90% of that, then you're at 55, 56%. Yeah, so you're, yeah. And I think part of that was just to, zero waste as a statement is great, but it also needs defining, it's zero waste, not zero, it's recover what you can recover and reuse what you can reuse.
We either need to get everybody really excited about recycling, which we're decades probably from in this place, in this Commonwealth, or force them to do it, which the Commonwealth's not interested in doing. So we're not going to get to those numbers, in my humble opinion.
I mean, even in home rule cities, where, the ones that have bundled services, you don't have those numbers. They're already paying for it and you don't have those numbers.
Yeah.
We would have a significant climb to make in that regard. On
Sadly, we have the recycles on Monday and waste on Thursday, but they could probably give you the number of bins that they gave their residents or who requested one, but
Yeah, they do that. They report that in on the annual report.
yeah, but other than that, that'd be it. To be on my street, everybody's got, most people have a bin, they're not having. Just because they're huge.
Yeah. So along the same lines of the recycling participation, do we have, I'm sure we do, kind of a like ranking of the different recycling drop-off centers and the volume of use that we're getting in
So you,
each one?
based on weight is what we do. So when we went to the front load operation for the unstaffed centers, it's all weighed together. So in the old system, we had 30-yard dumpsters at each location. You go and weigh it and it can be labeled Heights Lane. It can be labeled Bowman Field. Now they're all in one. So I got a weight of all of them combined daily. I can get that. As far as the staff centers, it is separated by material. the weights are, but there's only 3 staffed ones, and then I think we're at 12 unstaffed centers, I do believe.
And we're gonna use the one at the central government center, which is a wonderful facility, and those guys who work, they're doing great jobs. I want to congratulate them. They're doing that. But we don't even know how many people are actually participating. We don't have any sort of counter or anything where, you know, how many people are showing up. We can wait. We have no idea about participation though.
Well, I mean, we could do that at the staff centers, but the unstaffed, there's no way.
We want them to have to be, you know,
Right.
click.
Right.
Is there some other way we can?
I mean,
Yeah,
there's some,
that's what
yeah,
we-
something we might be able to come up with, yes. But as far as the unstaffed centers, there's no way we could keep track of people that use them. Or how many,
Is there some sort of a mechanical way?
right, exactly. So,
Because we don't even have that basic data.
yeah, and some of them are at fire stations, some of them are at parks, some of them are at, even ones on Smith Creek.
So
So-
potentially there are people coming in the same entrance as the recycling center and going to other locations at those unstaffed areas? Is that what you're saying?
No, they're isolated to one side, yeah. But some of them could be crossed, just a few of them, you know, employees, but not daily traffic, no.
So I'm thinking specifically of the newer one on Aiken.
Mhm.
And I could probably count on one hand the number of people I've spoken with about it that already knew about it. That live around me. Now, my city has recycling, but there are areas around us that do not have recycling. So I'm not sure that the awareness is high enough to have a higher utilization of some of those centers at least.
And I think out there it took long, I mean, we put it out there, but when we moved from the fire station, it took a while because we took us, I think me and Pete looked for 8 months before we found that location out that way.
But I feel it's also not extremely clear for people that it is down that way. So if there's improved signage to inform people that that's where it is, then I'm sure you would almost immediately start to get greater utilization of that space.
And I could talk to Matt from Smith Creek to see if he would let us put anything else on his property as far as signage or stuff like that.
Right. Anything else? Any other questions?
So I mean, I think one thing, and this goes back to the data, that it's harder to get participation data than it is, especially set out data, and it's more labor intensive than it is to just get sheer weight numbers, which is what diversion is based off of. Do we have the 2025 diversion rate yet compiled from the waste hauler reports and the?
Yes, I can get that for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think because not to assign everybody, homework, after giving, everybody had to look at the cost of service study. But if you go back to the study that was done in 2018, which is the long-term study that's supposed to be sort of the rails that we're on, right? That lays out a pathway. And then 2026 is the decision point. There's a short-term period where you have less regulation and some expanded education and things like that. And then it says you have a goal to get from 49% diversion when the study started to 58% in 2026. And then to get to your 90-90 goal by 2042, what do we need to do to be able to reach those goals? And I think we need to know where we are and where the updated diversion rates to be able to make those kinds of decisions about how we move forward and the best ways to do it.
So is this, to be clear, is this asking something of the advisory committee before we move to the cost?
I don't think so. It's just saying generally on the board, we've gotten a lot of newer board members. I think if, Karen, if there's any way that you can send around a copy of the old Cascadia report, just because that breaks down, there are 21 actions in that report that says these are the recommendations that we have in the short term and the long term. And it actually breaks down, this is the expected increased diversion that you could get from each of these actions. And granted, those are all estimates, but it's saying the best thing that you could do to divert waste is to have a C&D recycling ordinance passed, just because if you think of construction demolition debris, that's the heaviest material that you're going to have. And the second best thing that you could do is have standardized service across the county for recycling and yard waste. So, and we've done a little bit of that in terms of like the haulers trying to move to having, large carts for recycling instead of small bins and things like that. So that it's not a difference in the service level being provided. But that's number one and number two, our C&D recycling processing, and standardized services across the county.
Not the report that had all the data broken out by different cities and whatnot?
No, there's some of that. I mean, it has, and there were some model cities, like Austin, Texas was,
costs and numbers and everything.
yeah, no, I think that was mostly in the cost of services study, but there's some of that information in this. So I'm not sure, which part you're remembering, but there's a little bit of that in there, but even then it's 2018. So it's, I mean, a lot of that years ago, but that's fine. I mean, the difference in waste collection and recycling pre-COVID and post-COVID is massive. I mean, just the shift from commercial waste and recycling having a higher volume to then residential as people have started to work at home and things like that. I would say that the impact of standardizing residential service is even higher now than it would have been in 2022.
Okay. Let's go ahead and officially move to the cost of services.
Sure,
Right,
yeah.
since we've already been talking about it.
It was on the screen. I didn't know that we had it.
Yeah, we weren't there, but now we are.
Mr. Chair, before we go to the cost of services study, man, I have a make a statement.
Yes.
I was not here at the March meeting. I apologize for not being here, but at our February meeting, Ref Tellis made a presentation for the cost of services study. And Chair, I was embarrassed at the way that some of us reacted to the presentation and the way we reacted to the presenter herself. And I wish she were here so I could say I apologize for some of the questions and the way the tenor and the tone that happened during that meeting. The young lady did what we asked. Chair, the report, like it or not, it's what we asked for. How it happened, it's how it's happened. Those pages are here. The report is here. And whether we vote, whether we table, whether we discuss or whatever, I don't think Ref Tellis's reputation should be tainted because they did what we asked. Whether we like their outcomes of their tables, I don't really care. But they actually did the job. They did the work. Some of us didn't like the cost of whatever, the additional whatever, but we can't challenge what they did. We can't challenge the integrity of the study. But they did what we asked. And on that note, you have my time back, so.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Let's, all right. Let's get into it. So just to recap, we tabled the cost of services study in February to this meeting to give additional time for board members to review the study as it was presented. At the time in February, we did have significant discussion in the room, as Mr. Gibson has referenced, and there were viewpoints from all across the spectrum about what the judgment of the study was, or the accuracy of the study was. So given that we've had 2 months since that meeting, we're gonna open up for board member discussion first, for pertaining to this study.
If it pleases the chair, can I have one question on this one question? Mr. Attorney, what what are our options for this study? And I'm asking is if we quote unquote approve it, are we saying we agree with everything in it and we send it to the financial for an ordinance tomorrow and it's done? Or if we vote it down, does it die and never ever to return? Or if we voted to accept it, can we just keep looking at it and digging into it and actually keep swimming and take some things out of it that we actually might like? What are our options tonight?
I think your options are a myriad of options. I think you could vote to accept sections 1, 2, and 5. I think you could vote to table. I think you could vote to accept it with the idea that you're going to continue to look at what parts you want to study and what you're going to do with it. I think you could say, I mean, you did conduct the study. You've already convened the study. The study is what it is. I guess you could say you could vote to reject the study and that we're never going to use it and we'll put it on the table or put it away. You go into the council is not required at this very moment. I mean, accepting a study or not accepting a study doesn't require you to go to a council, but you may have to go to adopt a resolution to do something, such as some of the things that you talked about having the suggestive zones or something. I think you'll probably end up, you could adopt a resolution saying we're going to have 8 zones. I'm just making this up. Council has 45 days based on July 15th. This House Bill 607 goes into effect on July 15th. So after that point, they'd have 45 days to either approve or disapprove of what you all would suggest.
In that 45 days, will they have a 30-day comment period? Or will they-
45 days to take it up or to make it. But they now have over anything you do here, 45 days. That's a resolution that's going to require some action, likely some money or potentially some money. They're going to have a say in it and they can reject it or accept
What was my comment period then? A public comment period?
it. You can do what you want and give comment periods, but when you send your final, when you do your final resolution, say, this is what the board is going to do. We want to do this study and we're going to implement it.
Okay,
And you're going to have to do that by a board resolution.
right.
At that point, it doesn't go into effect for 45 days because the council can take it from you and say yay or nay. And that just happened in this last legislature.
Okay.
But that happens if you do it after July 15th.
Right.
What I understand this is a study. You all convened it. You can accept the results of it, accept some of the results of it, don't accept any of it. You can table it. You can continue to discuss it. I think you have a myriad of options. And I don't think you're stuck or married to any of them. I think it's up to you to decide, and it's a majority of you to decide. And I don't think it requires you to go to the council if you accept the study. I don't care about 45 days because it's not, that doesn't implement. It would, once you start implementing parts of it, I think then that's going to require resolutions, which will then require probably their input, but that's only after July 15th. If you implemented something June 15th, they don't have a say at that point because the law doesn't come into effect when they do until July 15th.
Okay.
I'm sure that didn't help a whole lot, but what I'm trying to say is you'll have a ton of options to do with what you want to do.
Yeah, I was hoping maybe narrative.
Yeah. Option one,
If you accept the study and then decide what parts you want to accept, you can say, yeah, we'll accept the study and then figure out what you want to do and how you want to implement it, if at all.
Okay,
So,
that's clear.
I think, and I think, I'll say this, based on that study, I read it, at least once. There's been different versions. It's 104 pages. There's a lot in it. So, I mean, I wouldn't expect you to be able to take any of it, turn it around very soon and say, oh, here's what we're going to do. I think it's going to take time and study and examination.
Yeah.
And input from others that aren't in this room. And I'm not talking about even politicians. I'm talking about people, public.
Ropey.
So, yeah, that might be a idea.
Thank you.
question for me as well.
Oh.
I know. Now, here we are.
Oh, no,
You're somehow gonna double the possibility.
From a prospect or process perspective, can Metro take action regarding this study without direction from the 109 board?
Yes. I believe they can. I believe Metro could today decide they're going to go down the path. They've deferred it to 109 board, but I don't think it's without their realm in the powers they have because they do deal with solid waste management to some degree. I think they could independently make and make any changes or not changes they want to how things are done here in this county. I do believe that.
So we could recommend something they could just do the opposite then?
I think they could. I mean, it might be required court challenge, but I think they could. I mean, nobody talks about this, but you're here because of an ordinance that created you. If they didn't want the 109 board, no offense to anybody here, they could disband it by saying, a majority saying, we don't need a 109 board. We're going to assume control of solid waste management. So to your question is, yes, they could, but they could do something even more. They could assume all the authority and disband the board. They have that authority. I mean, it is created, you're created by ordinance, you can be disbanded by ordinance. So that's a different question you asked, but it's the same result.
Yeah.
But that's my attorney hat today. I mean, Ray
So
McCormick-
we could be disbanded by either Metro Council or state legislature.
correct.
Fantastic.
How about- But the state law enacted, the state law only said local governments can create them. The local governments get to decide for themselves whether they want it or not. There's 120 counties. I don't know how many 109 boards, but by and large, they're probably pretty rare to have them in most counties. I don't think they're throughout. So it's a local government. They give you they empower you to create these boards. They empower local governments to decide if they want to do it.
Yep.
And the county decided that in the 80s that they were going to have a 109 board, I think, maybe the 70s, whenever.
90s.
Okay, see, Sarah Lynn's updated, 90s. Well, I'm getting, show my age, 90s. So they created, they gave you the authority. Then the county government, Jefferson County government at the time, decided they wanted to have that. And that's how they decided to deal with solid waste management. As you recall, those of us who are old city residents, we had a solid waste department and policy within local government. When they formed and merged, they kept all boards. So this board was kept, but you still have, of course, solid waste collection and a solid waste management department. But that all being said, is it's created at the state level to have it. It's up to locals to decide whether they do want a 109 board or how they want to govern solid waste management. Now, I think that was clear.
Yes.
Can we put this aside without an official decision? Can we put this study aside without tabling it, but then pick it up or at least take up certain sections of it at a later date?
You can always decide to lay something on the table, or the chair can indefinitely say, we're going to keep this and hold it, which he could. Somebody could challenge whether they want to hold it and say table it, but you could keep it on hold. You certainly could do that. And by the way, I'm new to this because I didn't come to when all this started, and I don't know when that was. So I'm coming at it probably at the 11th hour, but I know there was a study convened, and I don't know when that began. Was that a year ago?
The cost of services study, about 18.
I was
It was,
gonna say almost 20 months
I
ago.
was gonna say, it's almost
We're,
3 years.
we're running on 2 years, 2024, I got that.
Those payments will pay, I think, in October of 2020.
So it's been around a while, so, and I don't know what the board at that time intended. I don't think you have new members and a big board since then, but, you know, I don't have the benefit of having, is there a resolution that adopted that, or was it just adopted by Boy Scouts or going to conduct a study?
It was put in the solid waste plan, the
Okay.
5-year.
5-year plan.
That's like number one, 5-year.
So whatever that would have provided, I think is probably guidance for what this board intended and what they should be voting on is what did it say in the 5 year.
That's, that portion of it predates all of us here on this board. None of us were around for that 5-year plan.
2023 to 2027.
Karen, could you read the language of what's in the 5-year plan?
If you could.
If you want to commit memory. Because this group voted on that, correct?
So,
Don't think so.
no, we voted on the section to, adjust the landfill.
Yeah, the landfill capacity
Capacity.
reporting, we made an
Right.
amendment to it.
So I think that's the only portion of the 5-year plan that we voted on.
I can read this.
I mean, by the way, the 5-year plan was adopted by this board and approved by the Department of the Environmental Cabinet at state.
Yes.
Uh,
And that
yes.
should go through the public. So if you want to, the actual specific action in the 5-year plan says determined through a third-party consulting firm and with the sole purpose to create a trusted set of facts. It's changing from multi-hauler subscription-based collection to single-hauler contracted collection zones in the unincorporated and uncontracted areas of the solid waste management area would provide service levels and costs per household comparable to other contracted areas of the solid waste management area. And it continues, determine to the extent possible any potential community benefits or detriments of creating single hauler contracted collection zones in the current multi-hauler subscription-based collection areas. The third-party consulting firm will be determined by a request for proposal designed by the Waste Management District Board and through its committees. The third-party consulting firm should consider existing service levels and costs per household at the zip code level. It would be followed by impartial recommendations for improvements for residents and future 5-year solid waste management plans.
Miss Karen, I'm listening, so. Could you read this, the first 3 sentences again?
Yeah, determined through a third-party consulting firm and with the sole purpose to create a trusted set of facts. It's changing from multi-hauler subscription-based collection to single-hauler contracted collection zones in the unincorporated and uncontracted areas of the solid waste management area would provide service levels and cost per household comparable to other contracted areas of the area.
Thank you.
It was really wonderful.
That's it. Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
if it pleases the chair, I'll make the motion that we accept the study as written. And we continue to discuss the recommendations going forward.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second to that motion?
So can I ask a question before we second, just to clarify the motion? So when you're saying accept, that's in the realm of what Pat was saying in terms of we're accepting the report. We got the study. We're saying we have it. You did what was asked, but now we're not taking specific action. We're basically accepting it so that we can take action based on the report that we got. Is that
Yes, sir.
a much longer version
Yeah.
of what? Okay.
Yes.
I guess that's
Do
the
you-
problem with the word accept. Because in my opinion, that means that we are in my apologies, you're right.
We had a
That's
question.
right, there's no second.
There's no second.
Yeah, but I think I was asking a clarifying question and then that's why that's I think a little bit different, but that's, yeah.
Are you seconding?
I'll second the motion to accept it and then discuss it for sure.
Question.
All right,
Yeah, thank you, appreciate that.
comment.
I have a problem with the word accepted. Because to me, that means that we agree with something. And the English language is I won't comment about that, but I would have more agreement with the words we are in receipt and than the rest of your words.
Do you feel like the study, Great.
I did not accept that change because, and this is why, listening to her read the first two sentences of the charade, they meant that. So I accept what they meant. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm saying I accept what they were tasked to do. And in receipt to me sounds like it was a transaction over payment type thing. We've already paid for it. They did the work. We're accepting the report as done to me. Is what was the way I see it.
Can we say something like accept without recommendation to be determined after further discussion? Is that,
I can
like,
accept that.
that's the,
I can
I think that covers your, like,
Thank you. That's my way of saying it.
yeah, it's not conflating, accept and approve.
My apologies.
We receive a report does not mean that we necessarily.
Yeah. Just trying to find a.
We
Read
got
the
that
needle.
figured out.
Or is that on the sheet here?
okay, so what I'm hearing is, you're agreeing that they created a trusted set of facts regarding the scope. Just after all the discussion that we had last time, I didn't, if you're saying you're not saying you agree with it.
I'm just saying I accept it. I accepted that they did the work. And Mr. Reynolds seconded. I call question on the motion.
Any further comments, questions? All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I think that was 4, 5. Okay. Well, we go on the record saying no on this, because I do disagree that it was pursuant to our discussion at the February board meeting. It sounds like there was significant disagreement. So I'm going to vote no.
Understood.
Motion still passes to accept without recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, if I may ask a question, since you have a procedure that requires input by the public prior to voting on the issue, how do you handle that?
I don't recall that.
No, I don't.
There's a vote. Why didn't we get an agenda?
Public comment period.
In other words,
Public
if it's
comment.
not on the agenda. Public comment, if you don't get the comment, something not on the agenda.
You don't get the comment on a actual motion. That's on the board member.
Check them out.
Mr. Attorney, can we,
If you want to give me a copy of the file, I'll.
I have a little note.
Recently, and
A little note that you have on there in your agenda about, per bylaw, attendees will have the opportunity to comment after each agenda item before, every vote.
it does say that.
You have been.
Okay,
So vote rescinded.
so
Well, we had the motion on the second, right?
No, it's in the second there.
And then we had our opportunity for discussion and now we have.
Third.
all right, now,
Mr. Chair, I think you have to take a formal vote to rescind what you did.
Yeah.
all right. Can we get a motion to rescind the prior?
I'll make the motion to rescind the prior vote.
In the second.
All
right,
We're
all
doing
in
everything in
favor?
reverse.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion passes.
And now I think you could make public comment.
Now,
Whoever
let's take public comment.
wants to make a comment.
Now, does that happen after the motion or does it happen before the motion is, because now we've got no motion.
If all discussion has to come after, you have to have the board to speak and discuss. On the Robert's Rules of Orders, you have to have a motion and second in order for the board to discuss it. But the way I read your own agenda and board of bylaws is that once the board has finished discussing it, before you take a vote, public comment item by item on the agenda.
So we rescinded the vote, but not the motion or the second. So the motion and the original motion and second still stand. And then before we make the vote on approving the motion,
Are we good there?
then we have to
Okay.
have public comment. So
Okay,
What we're doing.
motion and second.
it's certainly.
Yeah. What I would like you to clarify is that the advisory body recommended that you accept the report. And I would like you to clarify that there have been numerous opportunities to quibble with the report's design assumptions. I think the report does a good job of showing where they got their information. They didn't make stuff up. It was very transparent. And I think therefore, if people are unhappy with the outcome, they should have been complaining all along. But to not do anything until the last minute and undercut all that work just tells people in the community, don't bother. They're not going to pay any attention. And Mr. Gibson, I appreciate that you're trying to distinguish between accepting and agreeing with every little thing, because they generally, yes, you're right.
Actually, the advisory committee did not accept, ask you to accept the report. We
Thank you.
forwarded the report to you with no recommendations.
I was gonna make that clarification. That's what I had noted as well.
That 5-1 vote was only to say that we're for it.
That's correct.
Anyone else has anything?
Mr. Chairman. Got a comment. After months of hearing testimony in regards to individuals, corporations, public sector, and the private haulers in regards to going tentatively through study and taking a lot of time and effort on that. I am very much a problem with saying and that you would agree to that the discussion of trusted set of facts was proven erroneous by numerous companies, numerous parties, numerous individuals that were opposed to this particular form of procedure. And it wasn't in regards to a quick information piece. This has been going on for a long time. And all of us, many of us sitting in this room, basically went through the study word by word, took exception to it. That all your board members of the advisory committee know what our exceptions were. And trusted set of facts is just a terminology. It is not truthful in this particular study.
But actually, I would agree that the both of the advisory committee did agree with this gentleman right here in that Raftellus had done in general what they were asked to do. The issue was not ever with Raftellus per se, except in one small component area. The issue was not were they put in what they found. They didn't try to make any of it inaccurate. And so in general, our issues were not with Raftellus.
We also had a problem where a lot of members of the regulated body refused to share information, and therefore Raftellus had no choice but to have gaps in the data. But to register objections is not the same as saying they did something wrong or incorrect.
Yeah, Mr. Reynolds has a little feedback.
Yeah, well, I think that everybody here is the regulated body. The 109 board and the advisory committee regulates solid waste collection and recycling and yard waste in Metro Louisville. The regulated body is not private waste haulers. The regulated body is Metro Solid Waste, it's residents, it's incorporated cities. I think we keep using the terminology of regulated body to talk about the private sector haulers. Metro Louisville is not the regulatory body for private sector haulers or landfills.
Just because
the district is, and I agree on that, but I'm just saying that if you're talking about saying the private sector didn't provide information, we have restrictions on what we're allowed to respond to that are set by state law also. So I mean, our hands are held on some of the things that we can provide specifically on pricing related to specific services. So I mean, there are just things that we cannot, even if we want to participate, we can't provide non-public, like a city. We can provide that information, but if it's an HOA that's a private entity, we cannot divulge that information.
Further comment?
I wanted to speak with you tonight, asking that you simply take no further action on this study. I do that not because I'm opposed to change, not because I think we have to tell us did a bad job, things of that kind. I am in an argument against adopting proposals that do not rest upon proper analytical foundations. A legitimate study must begin, I believe, with a clearly defined problem. That did not occur here. There has been no identification of any specific deficiency in the current system. No data showing failure. No quantifiable gaps. No demonstrated inefficiencies. And no articulated harm in public that requires correction. We have not been told what's not working, or where it's not working, how often it's not working, or what measurable impact it has on the public. Without that, there's no problem statement. And without a problem statement, there is no basis for analysis. At the February meeting, I asked one of the members of the board who is sitting here tonight, what's the objective? And his response was, I thought it was to increase recycling. But we have no definition of a problem saying we're not having recycling, or no solution saying, well, this is going to resolve the recycling. We have no definition of what the problem is we're dealing with. Because no problem has been defined, there's been no development evaluation criteria, no standard by which to measure whether any proposed change would actually improve the system. And because there are no criteria, there has been no meaningful consideration of alternatives. Anytime we're looking for a solution to a problem, we should be looking at the alternatives. What else is available? This study does not examine whether the current system can be improved through targeted adjustments, whether enforcement or coordination changes could address any of the issues, or whether the hybrid approach could preserve competition while addressing concerns. Instead, the analysis moves to a single structural concept, franchise, and evaluates the concept in isolation. That is not a comparative analysis. This is a single option evaluation presented as if it were the result of a broader study. In professional terms, it's the fundamental methodological failure. You cannot move from an undefined problem to a predefined solution without first examining alternatives and measurements that adjust objective criteria. Well, that step is skipped. The result is not a study. It is an outcome-driven process. And I would restate and emphasize, outcome-driven process. It was not started with a problem. It was started with a proposed outcome. And this has been the process to reach that outcome. In February, this board heard testimony from a provider whose family-owned business has operated for approximately 40 years and employs roughly 150 people. He testified that adoption of this proposal could put that business out of operation. But there has been no economic impact analysis whatsoever. No evaluation of job loss, no assessment of impact for existing businesses, no consideration of market disruption. The board is being asked to consider a structural change to an entire industry without understanding its economic consequences. At this time, this project was initiated. At the time this project was initiated, I don't believe any of you were on the board. This board has changed since then. I raise a question, and I suggest that this project goes forward to doing the franchise. It will be naive not to think there will be litigation. One concern that I also have is that the board at the time this started, at one point, not a single member of that board was within the appointment period of their appointment to the board. I put the executive director of this board and the chairman of this board, and at that time, and the Kentucky Attorney General on notice that I questioned that this board had the authority to expend public funds or to set policies to start this study. And I would anticipate, again, I think it would be naive, real quick, I think it would be naive to think there will not be litigation, and I think that concept would have to come into play. So I'm asking that you look at your fiduciary responsibilities and spending money. I think it's up to about $180,000 at this point. And I ask that you say, no, we will not move forward unless we have a full analytical analysis and process.
Thank you. All right. A quick response for clarification. There's a preferred course of action that's listed in the study. So to be fair, yes, there is a preferred course of action, but there are some alternate courses of action as well. Deputy Mayor George.
Chair, I just want to say on the front end, first of all, thank you to everyone on the board who's taken the time to honor the process of going through the study, working to get it as close as possible, understanding that there may be debates about methodology. There may be debates about recommendations made. Jerry said a lot of beautiful words just now, but I'm going to say this. Everybody in this room understands the problem. We may not, I certainly don't know what the right answers are. But if we don't have consensus on the disparate services that exist in our community, then we're not paying attention. If we don't understand how those disparate services impact our diversion rates or our landfill, then with all due respect, we're not paying attention. And I'm going to say this as somebody who has experience in the community in an area that we're all familiar with, which is Edgewood, Preston Park. If you live on the east side of West Indian Trail, I'm sorry, the north side of West Indian Trail, you live in urban services and you receive recycling and you receive bulk waste and you receive collection at a different rate than if you're on the south side of West Indian Trail. Who is in the old county, who has to secure their own services. And let me say, I'm sure many of those residents appreciate their haulers, they're loyal to them, they're getting a good rate. But it is undeniable that their collective purchase power is different than that of, say, the city of Linview, who is also doing a great job and is satisfied with their hauler, that has more purchase power through that collective suburban city that they have organized. the intention, again, I don't know what the answers are. But if we're not clear on the problem that we're trying to solve, which is to make sure that those folks that live south of West Indian Trail receive, some level of service that also ensures collective health and safety of our community and ensures the highest quality rate of diversion in terms of the landfill, then I'm not sure why we're here. We should all agree on the problem. And you guys have done incredibly noble work to deliver a study that moves us toward some level of conversation on those solutions. So I would just say what I've heard the proposal from the in terms of the motion was not to agree with everything in the study or how the study came about, but to dignify it by saying the board spent 2 years of time and a lot of work, and we are clear on the problems and we're committed to finding a solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor George.
One more, Mr. Chair. Can we get back to the motion now, please? One more. I think everybody has had a chance to speak.
Everybody has had a chance to speak. As long as there's no more comment, then we will move back to the motion and the second that we have on the floor. Any further discussion among the board? Okay. All in favor of the motion on the floor, which is to accept the study without action, without a recommended action. Please say aye. Aye. All right. Motion passes.
Did you have any opposition to the motion?
I'm still voting no. And it is not to say that I don't think that there is any recommended action with this. I'm not ready to vote on this as it is right now. I think I feel like it still merited more discussion amongst the board. And I am more in favor of making a vote with a substantive recommendation.
Well, and that was Kevin's intention.
This
Yeah.
vote is not determine that. This vote is cuts off the discussion of what it is. We had it. Now we can actually dive into it, discuss it, dissect it,
Determine what recommendations we have or not.
if any.
Yeah.
Okay, at this point, because I think we beat this up. Yeah. It's here. Just what it's what it is. So now let's move forward and see if we can dissect this thing and see if there's anything worth keeping. And it may not be, I don't know. There may be some stuff in there that's the 1, 7, 9, 15, and 20. Or none. I think that's where we go next. Is how we actually dissect this thing and actually sit down, the 6 of us, to decide how this thing's gonna work. My comment.
Understand. Thank you. All right. Anyone wishing to be heard on items not pertaining to the agenda? Not pertaining to the agenda. This not pertaining to the agenda. Okay.
I would like to say congratulations to this board. I am seeing conflict. It's something that's relatively new on this board. Of course, we have new members. Most of you don't know much about my background. I worked on a PhD in organizational development back many years ago. I taught 7 years with the Army, dealing with organizational effectiveness. For any board to be effective, you gotta have disagreement. You gotta have people who trust each other enough to ask questions and to hold each other accountable. I appreciate what I have seen from members of this board the last few times that I've been coming to these meetings. We may not agree. I may think this shouldn't be, or that should be, that I appreciate that I'm sitting here watching members of the board that represent me in one way or another, asking questions, disagreeing, because it's through that accountability and that conflict that I can't go to Staples and buy a rubber stamp and replace you.
Thank you.
That's a good.
Anything else not pertaining to the agenda?
Is that the name?
Sterling?
Wanted to offer a process suggestion that worked for the advisory body. When we couldn't reach agreement, we made a deal amongst ourselves that we had 1 or 2 months, if anybody can correct me, where you had to commit, you were going to show up, you will have gone through the whole thing and have your short list of concerns. And it was amazing how in that next meeting, we reached a consensus. And I think that is a good way to get everybody to focus with a deadline, because most of us don't get around to doing things any other way, let's be honest. And if you make it be too long, they're still gonna start a few days beforehand, so you might as well make it sooner.
Thank you, Sterling.
I'm not sure that I would characterize what we did as that on the advisory committee. I appreciate why she said it, and yes, we talked and talked and talked, but I'm not sure at the end we ever came to a consensus.
You voted on it too.
Yeah, I voted on it to don't go nowhere.
I want to see these minutes, because I don't think that's right.
I mean,
Okay.
They have deeds, we voted to keep it going.
All right.
Okay.
Point of order.
Yeah.
Any other comment? Okay, let's move to announcements.
Announcements. Like Karen said earlier, next pop-up drop-off event is at U of L Shelby Camp, not Shawnee Park. I was gonna say, we just did Shelby.
All right.
Advisory Committee, May 20th, and 109 Board, May 27th.
All right. If there's nothing else,
I just want one very quick thing. I know I already mentioned looking at the old study, but I know everybody's looked at the cost of services study, but I would say, at least to me, the key thing to refresh for me before the next discussion about it is pages 87 through 91. That's the considerations and next steps, policy options and decision pathways, policy direction and framework approval. So familiarize yourself with what the cost of services study says. It internally even would be the steps to even consider action, which is get input from outside of this board, and that's after coming through the advisory committee, because you still have to talk to elected officials, you still have to talk to the public to get input. It can't just be, we're empowered to have some authority here, but we still need input from, now that we have a study in front of us that we can point to and say, what do you think about this?
all right, 87 to what?
91. 87 to 91.
To 91.
Quick, the old guys. And it's the printed, like on the bottom. Right. Yeah.
Okay. With that, if there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Meeting is adjourned.